it's Raquel Bowman here, and today I'm here creating a layout featuring a mood board that you can find in the latest issue of Jot magazine. It's sort of a mixture of black, greys, burgundy, some pink tones and white. And I'm really drawing inspiration from this stack of books here and the colour palette as well, more so with the pinks. And what I've gathered together is a cut file. I think this one is a Paige Evans cut file, which is a stack of books, which I'm going to back with pattern papers that complement the mood board. And then I have a black and white photo here of a book that I read recently, probably one of the first books that I've read in quite a while. That was it's a sort of a realistic fiction or real fiction sort of book. However, I had not read in a while, and it used to be something that I really loved to do, so I wanted to journal about that. I did find from the couple of Cocoa Vanilla collections just a couple of cute frames. I don't know whether I'll use them or not. And then I do have some, it's my son in the background, I have some coordinating papers and things which I'll back the cut file with as well. So I'm just going to get creating and see how this layout ends up. So I tend to always start my layouts involving cut files with the cut file itself, because that tends to be, as well as my photo, a main focus of my page. So I need to really get that sorted how I want it to be before I continue on embellishing my page and working out where other bits and pieces might go. So I'm working through just each of those little book spines and different pattern papers that I've selected that sort of work well with the colours in the mood board, and I'm just backing each section. Now, sometimes when I back a cut file, I will trace and cut out, but in this instance, I actually just stick the pattern paper straight onto the back of the cut file, and then once it's slightly dry, I would cut around the edges, and because they were all nice straight pieces, it was super easy to do. The backing piece on my white cardstock is one of the Pick Me Up pattern papers by Paige Evans for Pink Paisley, and I love the gradient in the colours. It incorporated that real deep sort of burgundy colour as well as a lighter pink, so I thought that that would suit the mood board well. And then I'm going through the ephemera pack and trying to find anything that may work with the mood board. Mood boards are great because you get a colour palette to sort of work with, you get some inspirational pictures which might spark off a design, as I talked about at the start. But for me, really, a colour palette is a great way of picking and choosing embellishments that I want, popping them to the left or right side of my layout, and then creating with what I've gathered. So I'm not overwhelmed by choice, which is something that us scrapbookers can probably always end up having, because we have, and we can't help but have, lots of gorgeous things to be waiting to play with. So as you can see on the right there, I've gathered together bits and pieces. Off camera, I did a little bit of sort of placing of some embellishments, which are some of the Cocoa Vanilla florals and one of the moths from the collection. Now, I chose this moth because I am doing those colours, but I don't know, are moths cute in other places? Because our moths are scary. Like, if there's a moth, we don't want moths. If there's a moth in your cupboard or in your house, you worry that it's going to eat your clothes. And they're not pretty. They're like brown and ugly, and they fly at you and they like the light, and I don't know, like this one on my layout is cute, but it wouldn't be something that maybe I'd choose because they're so scary. So anyway, slight tangent, but yeah, it's baffled me that there's moths on that pattern paper, but yep, I did use them because it matches my layout and it looks like a butterfly, sort of, a little bit. I'm going to say that it's a butterfly anyway. So I'm adhering down my cut file with some foam adhesive, and that just gives it that little shadow around the edges that I like. It makes it that just slightly dimensional, and I'm sort of tucking my photo just a little bit under there as well. I had a bit of trouble with my title for this page because I knew that I wanted it to go on a spine of the books, but I had that on the list, which is I think it's an Amy Tan Thickers. It was just too big and bold. And then I found these Pink Fresh Studio little alphas that I got recently, and they were a really nice size. So I've written out the words right now. And then I do some journaling to explain why I've chosen that title. I had a bit of trouble embellishing this layout as well, just because I didn't want to have the layout being too busy, but I also wanted to be able to play with pretty stuff and, you know, create some clusters and layers of embellishments, but I didn't want it to be too much. So I found from the Paige Evans Pick Me Up ephemera pack, that little ephemera piece to the right of the book says, "You're my favourite pick me up," and I thought that's a really nice quote to go along with reading of books, because it's something that I do enjoy so much. Apologies for my puppy. I'm going to try and keep going and hope that she stops. So I do add that to the left. I didn't say before, I did grab some black Heidi Swap Colour Shine and just add a few little splatters onto the back of the page, which ended up getting quite covered up, but that's okay, because that tends to be the process whenever I add anything to do with any kind of mixed media, which tends to only be splatters, that I end up covering it up with layers and my bits and pieces. But anyway, so I'm typing out my journaling, which I did type a lot more than what I maybe was expecting to type, and then had to find room for it on the layout. I love these trimmers, these smaller trimmers for cutting my journaling or my photos, just because they're so convenient. So on my desk to the right of my space, I have a large 12 by 12 trimmer. I've recently purchased the new Tim Holtz 12-inch guillotine style trimmer as well, and I use that a lot for school type work. And then I've got some smaller ones as well, and they're just so handy and so easy to cut things like journaling out. So I'm sort of trying to place my journaling and scatter them along the spines, which I end up doing. I add the date on one spine. Next to that right now, I add the beginning of my journaling and sort of finish off my journaling in that bottom section of the layout. To help sort of add that triangle to my page, I do add a love tab and another floral up in that top left corner. And of course I add some machine stitching around the edge of the entire layout, which I do before I do all the sticking, so it's just a bit easier. So I'm all finished, and I'm going to leave you with some close-ups. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure to check out the latest issue of Jot magazine if you haven't already. It's a big one. You must check it out. Bye everyone.